Hey guys, kinggath here with the kinggath podcast, and today's guest is I guess, mod designer. I was going to say level designer, but I think so much more. Level designer, mod designer who has worked on Beyond Skyrim, Fallout Miami, Fallout Cascadia, and like a million other projects. Welcome, CreatyChameleon.
Hi, you can call me Ash.
Right on, Ash. So you well, first of all, you are very young for having worked on all of these projects, which is pretty cool.
Yes, I'm just 19.
You must be an addict.
Sure, let's call it that.
An addiction. I don't know how you got so much. Yeah, because you said you had multiple years working on Cascadia.
2.5, give or take.
Yeah, good few months working on Miami, and working on Beyond Skyrim, and then you showed me some Fallout 3 mods you did. Like, just busy to get all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I've learned the tools of the creation kit very, very thoroughly. I think I know enough to do just about every aspect of modding these days, which I do. I actually do the 3D modeling as well for some things. Like I said, I do a lot. I do a lot. Sound design, voice acting, 3D modeling. I can go into it for a while.
Sure. Well, that one mod you showed me, Unto the Breach, you looked like you wore a lot of hats for that.
Not at all, actually. I did just level design and a bit of writing, and I actually did some voice acting for two of the characters, I believe.
So was that your first big project?
If you want to call it big, yes.
I mean, anytime people do a quest mod, it's kind of big because there's
fair.
like so many moving parts for them, and actually coordinating and getting it all done.
Yeah. It was just me and one other guy who really kind of coordinated on that. But yeah, there's a lot I do, and I have a lot of time, and half the time I've learned, like I said, I learned the creation kit so well over the last 7 years, 6 or 7 years, give or take, since I started using the Gek.
Since you were a wee lad.
Yes, since I was a wee person. It's about 6 or 7 years. I think I started with Fallout New Vegas Gek or Fallout 3. I don't remember quite which one.
So what got you started into it? Like, what made you pick that thing up? At what? Like, that you would have been 12, 11?
12 or 13. Yeah, I think I want to say it was like I was like, I want to make a house, or it was like a custom weapon. No, actually, I think the Skyrim was the one that I actually started with.
Okay.
I think I did a quick model swap so that you could ride a bear like as a horse, but it didn't work out, so you ended up just playing as a horse. As a bear. Like, you just ran around as a bear. I was like, that's cool, and then I threw it away. And then I moved back to New Vegas and Fallout 3 with Under the Breach. And I started a couple of quest mods of my own, but I never actually planned anything out ahead of time, and they always horrendously failed after like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'll happen.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gotta do some planning.
Yeah,
So you just kind of learned trial by fire, just came out with little random projects, dove in, and
just douse myself in gasoline, light myself on fire, and jump off the cliff of modding, and now I'm one of the people that helps catch people who do that. Because as of the last couple of days, since after we started scheduling this, I was promoted to triumvirate for the Beyond Skyrim Arcane University, meaning I'm one of the top.
Is that?
I'm one of the people that manages the server. I manage the students. Like, I help teach people.
Right. But like, you just gave me a whole lot of stuff I've never heard of. What is it? Like, what is a triumvirate? What is this? What is
the
this
triumvirate?
Academy?
Is just
what
like
is going on here?
Yeah. Okay.
It sounded like you just started dropping fantasy terms on me.
Technically, I did. So the triumvirate is the top 3 leaders of the Arcane University. I believe that's something from Elder Scrolls lore. I don't actually quite know. However, the Beyond Skyrim Arcane University is a mod school, essentially, where anybody can go to learn Skyrim modding specifically. So they can become...
that's amazing.
So they can join Beyond Skyrim. In fact, I was on the Arcane University as a teacher for level design before I was even part of Beyond Skyrim, which was funny. Well, no, it was after. I joined it a year and a half ago. I was technically part of Cyrodiil 2.5 years ago, like within the first 2 months after I joined Cascadia, that's the word.
Okay. Wow, you're taking me on a whole different direction I thought we were going to go, which is what I love about freeform podcasts. We just get to go all over the place. Because I have a YouTube series called Bethesda Mod School, and I had no idea that this Arcane School existed.
Yeah, the Arcane University is a fantastic place.
Now, where do I find this, and what can you tell me about it? Because it sounds like something that I would be very interested in.
So, oh god, there's so many invites here. What the heck? Okay. I'm gonna delete some of these invites. Jesus, what the hell? There's like 30 invites to the server. Okay. So the Arcane University is, like I said, it's a mod school that you can find.
Okay.
If you're on the Beyond Skyrim community outpost, it is one of the pinned. It's pinned inside of recruitment, I believe. So if you want to help out the project, but you don't think you're good enough, people will direct you here to the Arcane University, where myself and I think 20 or so other extremely talented Beyond Skyrim members will help teach you to learn the tools. It's a very self-directed sort of school. It's not like we're sitting down like, hey, you need to do this thing to get here. You got to get this done by this. No, like if you want to spend
Sign
16
up for your
hours,
101 classes.
Yeah. If you want to spend 37 hours straight working on a single dungeon and then have us critique it, go there. We'll do that. We'll help you learn by doing trial by fire. We help catch you while you're on fire. So we're like, here's how you put that fire out.
Right.
Which is
because that's one of the hardest parts with getting into the modding, especially with the creation kit stuff, is there's a lot of weird things you'll run into.
Oh god, yeah.
That are either buggy or require weird workarounds or just like not intuitive in any way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it can be very I would say frustrating and intimidating to get into modding if you don't have a support network.
Like it is honestly a super low barrier of entry to actually get into modding. However, the issue does occur when it's like you start looking at everything and you're like, okay, there's a lot of boxes here and I don't understand what these boxes mean.
Right.
You got to start learning that sort of thing. Like the toolbar and learning the keyboard shortcuts is so helpful.
Right.
Like something that
I found out recently that there's a whole bunch of shortcuts in the creation kit that are undocumented, and so it's just trial knowledge whether or not you get access to them, and they can completely transform the way you.
They're not on the wikis, but they are documented in the show keyboard shortcuts button, which is it's god tier. You got you got to click it.
That has all of them. Yeah, that has a lot of them for like the render window, but I found that there's actually some in a lot of other windows that are nowhere.
I believe you have to. It's like a thing of you have to have the thing open, like the window open, and then go into there, and it'll show you everything. It's dumb. The creation kit. It's a 27-year-old program.
Well, it's very. You can tell it's very much an internal tool. Like you get it to the point where we're gonna just teach people this stuff in. We don't need to put tooltips or put in a lot of help menus, which is
something they did do with Fallout 4. They did do that with the Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition creation kits. They actually did add tooltips and ways to help guide you around, it's great, but it's also really freaking useless at the same time.
Yeah, we just had a walkthrough. Myself and Nika Cola the other day walked through the quest stuff, and we're talking about all the places where. Oh, fantastic. Well, we were just talking about all the random bits in there that are cryptically labeled, and there's no tooltip, and it's like, come on, Bethesda, just give us a tooltip. Like, that has to be even cryptic to your new people. Much less us on the outside.
There's a reason Bethesda has been hiring so many modders, and it's because modders like myself and a couple of other people just like know the tools that well that it's just like, we may as well hire these people because they've spent the hours of training that we don't have to expend.
Right. It's you just saved us 2 years of training costs by being a modder. Yeah,
exactly.
So what other stuff can somebody expect? Do you guys have just a load of tutorials in the forums, or what kind of resources?
It is a Discord server, not a forum, unfortunately, because with the collapse of Dark Creations, a lot of Beyond Skyrim has moved exclusively to Discord. So with the Arcane University, the only course there is a course for quest design specifically. So you'll learn how to format quests, write notes out, learn how to write dialogue in the correct way so implementers can take that and run with it. However, on my personal team, which Far Cry is what we talked about earlier, I can't disclose anything at this moment. We use a very different form of dialogue writing. We use Cascadia-style dialogue sheets, which is if you don't know what you're looking at, you're going to have a brain meltdown.
Huh.
I can show you some later, but they're bad.
Fair enough.
Excuse me.
Sorry. I'm pretty sure most of the teams have switched to the method that we came up with, which is using a program called Twine. But I don't
Twine's
know
a good method.
I don't know if any of the Skyrim teams are doing that, because I know the tools for building out dialogue trees are way different in Skyrim than they are in Fallout 4.
Does Fallout 4 support direct Twine?
We've created tools to use with Xedit so we can import them. But
that's fair. I think we use Twine, at least in the quest design course that I was referring to. They use Twine to help you figure out the flow of a quest. So it's like, I'm going to set up...
Very nice for that visually.
For the visualization. I personally now have been using Draw.io, which is a Google program. It's really, really nice. And before that, I was using Artisy Draft, which I used to plan out a main quest line. And it was very nice to do it because you could add NPCs and their dialogue. Like, you could go as macro or micro scale as you want.
Sure. So you've definitely then graduated well beyond level design if you're doing all this writing and worrying about all this software to manage it. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I'm a project lead for a team right now of, I want to say 16 to 23 area. I don't remember. I've been managing writers, asset creators, 2D artists. I have two lead level designers who do their department, so I don't have to manage that, even though that is where the bulk of my experience is.
Sure.
But it's like when you're adding in version control with Creation Kit, oh god, kill me. It's horrifying. But
that can be a mess.
It's a whole lot.
I've heard plenty of horror stories from some of the other big teams about lost work and failures of merging.
A lot of that comes in from mistaking certain aspects and accidentally not switching out network ESMs and just not keeping actual physical backups of every file.
Right.
I thankfully keep hundreds of backups of every file ever.
Well, that's probably why you're in charge of people, because most of us are pretty disorganized, and that's a good skill set to have if you're in charge.
Some of my, I'm extremely disorganized, but extremely organized.
Don't tell them that. You're gonna lose your position.
Oh boy. Oh man. If they knew just how bad I was, I would not be doing this.
So this Arcane University sounds. I can't believe I've never heard of this. Probably because it's on a Discord server. So I've got this contention against Discord servers. I love Discord. I use it.
I'll just drop the link
for
it.
Sure, I'll definitely pop my head in there. But one of my problems with it is that it seems to me like a terrible place to have lengthy conversations, and it's a terrible place to store information long term.
It can be for that. I mean,
yeah.
At least with Discord, you still can pin information and find things from the start of a server, which is really nice. It's the same thing as forums. It's just it doesn't present it from
I would
the
agree
very
if
top
their search
down.
tools weren't terrible.
They're
horrible.
bad.
Yeah, like we need an advanced search, please, Discord admins.
Discord, if you're watching this, please fucking give us life.
Because then it could have the potential to be like. Because I get a lot of people asking all the time if we could create. Because we've got a forum for some settlements, and we use that for helping people learn how to do some settlements modding and just use the mod to play with it. And all the time we get people asking like, why aren't you using a Discord? Like forums seem like such ancient technology. It's like they're actually the perfect technology for this type of communication. That's the reason Reddit still exists.
Yeah. So I personally find myself preferring Discord for team management and actually working on mods. So with Arcane University, a lot of it is one-to-one self-learning. So someone picks up a specific trade they want to learn. So say they come in like, hey, I want to learn 2D art. We teach that. Yeah. We have some fantastically talented individuals who help teach people, the basics. They give you some resources, and it really is all self-taught except for quest design. And even because that's run by Craftian, who is a fantastic, extremely talented writer. I want to say he's Cyrodiil. Can't quite say for sure. Because, God, there's so many teams. I don't remember who's in what.
That whole project is so massive. It would have to be.
I think there's we're over 200 members strong across the board. Which is, it's freaking insane. It's absurd to keep track of. Like, oh boy, it's a whole mess. Like, it's not a mess. It's great.
It's amazing that it's amazing that the squad managed to release anything at that scale.
Oh yeah, no, there's we're fixing up for a couple. We're rearing up for releases soon, but not like soon, but like soon.
Not soon enough to give me a date right now or anything.
If I give you a date, Rob would literally come to my house and rip my head off.
Yeah.
Not that I have a date, because we don't have a date. It'll happen when it happens, but it's kind of soon.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've heard from a lot of people who have been working on little bits, and I keep hearing about chunks that are nearing completion, but it's a lot of work to do that stuff. Like a world space is serious business. It's not a joke. So when I see these mod announcements popping up all over the place for these world spaces, I'm like, and you see, they've got like just the
all
name,
of them are hand landscaped. None of them are good.
Oh my god!
Honestly, if you don't have a genuine actual height map, stop.
Yeah,
just stop.
Is that the type of thing?
Look good.
Is that the type of thing somebody could learn from Arcane University?
Actually,
like, I want to make a little mini Skyrim world map. Where do I start? Where does somebody start?
Fun fact: I did a 10-hour live stream in which I started an entire world space project. I started on the height map and an idea, and I think I have streamed 40 hours of it, and then I stopped because it turned into the Far Cry project, which is super secret special stuff.
So this is stuff people could find on your YouTube channel.
They can, yes, which I can link real quick. But
yeah, I'll link all for everybody listening. I'll link all this stuff below in the description somewhere. And if I forget, just keep poking me until I remember to copy paste it.
So here's the channel. You can scroll through a bunch of the stuff. You can see how much I do. I do level design for stuff. I released some of the Fallout Miami implementation stuff I did years ago. I don't think any of it matters anymore.
Because they did the reset on the world space.
So you can see there are. Let's count this up. So I did a 10-hour level design stream in which I did a town. That was the starter town. So you can see kind of how you start laying out the basics of the town. That's not even a full detail pass. That is just level 1 block out for that town.
Sure.
So there is,
and I think even some of that type of stuff of like, here's how you generate a height map. Here's a process we call blocking out to get things started. Even just doing things like that, teaching people that and showing them what it looks like, can be such a huge boon for people who are trying to get started.
Honestly, this whole project started as a way for me to teach people without having to sit down and write the courses, write everything out. Because for some reason, I've had a level design course sitting in my Google Drive, completely blocked out, ready to start getting the scripts ready. I just haven't been able to get my brain to want to do it. But a live stream in which
like
I just do
an outline as opposed to actual written.
The most outlined is like the fundamentals of what level design are.
Okay.
Because that's like super important to know, and you'd be surprised by how few people in the Bethesda modding community actually understand why level design exists. Most of them just understand how to do it. Oh god, yeah. No, it's like it's horrible.
You see like the dramatic difference in quality, and where some people will over clutter, some people are cram their spaces too tight, some people don't like correctly.
So few people understand optimization and why level design exists, and it really shows. And it's one of those things where it's like these huge teams have some fucking talented people, but a lot of the time they still don't understand the technical aspect of things, which is a problem. Thankfully, I'm a programmer as well.
Yeah, why not? Throw another hat in there. Writer, programmer, level designer.
I stopped. That's why so you want to know where my username comes from? I'm a creative chameleon because I blend into literally every aspect of creativity.
And that's actually, I think that's a great, like being a jack of all trades is great for management, just because you understand enough to talk about all aspects of it and not give people too much work, and like it's a good thing to know a little bit about everything in that role.
And I think that's why everyone on my project likes having me as a lead. Because I understand how they do things, and I can help them do it and do it to the best of their abilities. And that's something I strive to do.
I'm sure a lot of my team is wishing I knew more.
You could always just spend a couple hours a month
it's no problem.
learning things.
It's no problem. You can just do this with the sound, right? And they're like, no, that's not how that works.
No, because Creation Kit sound fucking sucks. I have a couple of super talented audio guys on my project right now. One of them is like, I think he's getting a master's in audio, and he's like, I hate this. Please, why does it have to suck this much? Can we just get wise or something? And it's like, no, we can't. I'm sorry. He wants to cry and die because it's just that bad.
There's a lot of limitations in it, but
yeah. Back to the project, the level design course thing.
Sure.
That whole project, the project I lead now, and the original Aldos Steel and Snow project, all started as a way for me to teach people my methods of level design and the way I go about things. So I initially started off with an idea and said, you know what, we're just going to sit down, we're going to impromptu the entire thing on stream. So I started off with, what if it's to the north, it's Cold Island, okay, cool, what would that look like? So then I take up World Machine 2, and I started blocking out the shapes for it and planning it out, and then I actually show people how to use Tess.
What was that you said? World Machine 2?
Yes.
What is that?
World Machine 2 is a height map maker, so you can use it to... Sorry, what?
Is that a free piece of software?
To a certain extent, yes. The version I have is not a free piece of software. I can go above 512 pixels, which is, let me double check. I can never remember. I want to say it's 16 by 16. Yes.
Okay.
So 512 pixels is your height map resolution. That'll get you a 16 by 16 cell count in Skyrim.
Gotcha. Okay, so you would have to stitch a bunch of those together if
you
weren't
literally
paying for the full version.
Yeah, you would have to do it that way. You'd have to stitch them together, which it's not horrible, not great. Like you can make that large scale
because I guess they wouldn't pin together they wouldn't map together nicely automatically.
You could do it because it does set up as tiling, and if you know how to manage the software, you could actually move the piece you're exporting perfectly, so you could actually tile it very easily. Why did I pay for the software? I could have just done that. Oh well.
And you're supporting the creators because you use it.
Yeah, no, I use it occasionally. It is a good piece of software. It allows you to make fairly realistic and good-looking height maps.
Sure.
I can pull up a screenshot. I'm totally okay showing these off.
Well, I'm going to send people to your stream because this sounds amazing to be able to have somebody get a crash course in level design. Now, before we go any further, because I want to hear more about this, is this something, because most of my audience comes from my modding in Fallout 4, so we have a lot of crossover between
all of this can
Bethesda
be
games,
completely put into Fallout 4. All this knowledge can be adapted to Fallout 4 and be done quicker because the asset scrolling and material. Oh God, please give it back. Please. Oh God, it sucks not having the ability to scroll through assets and material swaps. I want to die.
This is why I don't mess with Skyrim anymore. People have asked me, like, could you make Sim settlements for Skyrim?
No.
I was like, probably. Like, I actually think I could put most of it in, but
actually,
I don't
think
want
it
to.
could all be done. It could all be done pretty quickly. It's just like a matter of I don't want to.
Right. I don't want to have to go because I'm going to lose all of these functions. The creation kit's harder to use. Yeah, I don't think I can step back.
Well, it's not harder. It's just it is harder. It sucks. if you are not willing to want death every time you open this thing, don't get into modding. Like you're going to want to die.
You do have to be a patient person, I think, to mod. I think if you're impatient, then you prepare to break some monitors and keyboards.
You have oh God, yeah. I mean, even with the stripped Skyrim ESM, it can sometimes take 2-3 minutes for me to load just like my world space.
Right. And then you combine that with the frequency of crashing in the CK, and it's...
I actually don't crash that often anymore.
Really?
Knocking on wood.
You've learned all the ways to avoid it?
Yeah, so Fallout 4, I won't ever touch water. If I place water, it stays exactly where it is, and I don't touch it. Because you can watch... I did streams on Cascadia as well, wouldn't you know it? Okay. You can find those on their channel. I'm prolific. I'm around. It's kind of funny. Regardless, you can see like there was literally I had like a folder of memes just filled with if the creation kit will kill itself if I ever touch water in the Fallout 4 creation kit. No idea why. It will just do it. So once it's down, it's down. I have to hope it gets in the right spot where I want it. Otherwise, I have to open up Xedit.
There's a lot of weird quirks like that. I find
tiniest
if I add a new quest objective and then leave that tab and try and come back to it, I crash the CK.
Yep.
So it's like once I put an objective, it's there forever. It's too bad.
Yeah. No. There's some. The Fallout 4 creation kit is far worse in terms of it's way more unstable. That's the word. I don't know why. Like that's the reason. So if you're going to join Beyond Skyrim, you have to have Legendary Edition Skyrim. Because the Legendary Edition Creation Kit is the most stable version of the Creation Kit ever.
Now, I would say, don't most people who picked up... Didn't we get that for free if we owned...
Legendary Edition is old Skyrim with all DLCs.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Special Edition came with Legendary Edition.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what
so you have to have Legendary.
I was wondering. I know I have both, but I don't. Yes. I never paid for both, so I can't remember which one. So Legendary was the one that comes with all the DLC.
Yes. And then you can just have Skyrim with regular DLC. That's fine. It just means Legendary Edition is the all-encompassing term for vanilla Skyrim from 2011 with DLCs.
Gotcha.
You need to have
if you
that.
only picked up Special Edition, you wouldn't have the right.
You cannot mod. Yeah, you can't use that CK to mod for Beyond Skyrim. Because we have to mod in Legendary Edition because it has the lip data functions that work. Right. It's stable, which is weird.
One of the things that irks me a lot it's starting to turn my opinion. So I've had a hard line for a long time now of I never include DLC requirements on my mods because I feel like not everybody has them. But at some
with Fallout 4,
you look at at some point you look at even with Fallout 4, like you look at some point of this game's been around for 4 years now. if you're still playing it to this day, like, why haven't you invested another $6-7? Because that's how much, like, if you love the game that
they're
much,
cheap.
continue playing.
You can get them for cheap,
right? That's what's saying. Skyrim at this point, like the original, is probably what, like $15,
$20. For old Skyrim, it's technically not even listed. You can't find it through a search on Steam. You have to go through Google and crawl through it.
Or Google,
yeah, that is a way to do it as well. It's through like Humble or Good Old Games, or neither of those have it. Like the key stores.
Somebody out there has a key. Yeah. Somebody out there has a key for you to
get
buy.
those, or you still can pick it up from Steam, but it's still like $20, and each DLC is $20. Like you're spending a full $60 just to get the game with DLCs.
That they did that.
It's dumb.
That's weird. Especially because they keep re-releasing it. I guess that's how maybe they have to because of that.
Well, that's
because, like, how do they maintain? How do they ask you to pay $50, $60 on Switch if you can just go buy it on PC for
$10-15? Yeah, that's why you can only find Special Edition and VR on Steam.
Interesting.
Is because it's like you release this slightly better version. Why would you keep the old version around? It makes sense,
right? Yeah,
you can still buy it.
I get it.
It's just unlisted. You just have to go through a Google search instead. Right. What were we talking about?
Well, we got derailed there, which is my favorite part of podcasting. But we were starting to talk about where you go from your level map. So you started out with World Machine 2,
yes,
and you build your height map.
Yes. Okay. So once we have the height map, we export it out as a TIFF. That gives us a 16-bit color range. If you have anything less, you're going to get really flat jaggies all over the place. You'll see that in some really bad height maps. You can see that in, if I can find Fallout 4 screenshots. I think I still have some Miami screenshots around from when I first imported it. It's got some really bad, like it's flat and then a straight drop. It's not like a smooth gradient like you'd want from your land. With 16-bit color depth, which TIFF has and which your export will give you, it does allow that smooth gradient between each pixel, which is the vertex points of each land quad.
Okay.
Which you know what I mean. Viewers won't. That's the mesh of the
a couple
of the cell. So that is like the triangles in the cell. So once you have
so you got your
TIFF
height map, it's exported.
Yes. So then you take it into Photoshop or whatever program, as long as it can export raw format. You export with IBM header and 0 something. I can't remember. Bit depth 0.
I assume this is all people can watch you do this in your stream.
100%. They can do this. I actually explain it probably better than I am now. Then once you have that raw file, you take that over to your Skyrim or Fallout 4 directory, and you open up a command line and you type out certain commands for Tess Anwin. You run it through Tess Anwin. It'll take, depending on the size of your height map.
What is this Tess Anwin? Is this a community tool or is this a Bethesda?
This is a community tool from the Morrowind days, which we still use.
Okay.
Wow. It's the only reliable way of importing a height map.
Okay.
Because it creates the raw data from scratch. So once you have that, the Tess Anwin, once you have that file, that is going to be a Skyrim file. You can you can pull that up. You can pull that up into Fallout 4.
Okay.
So, but you can't go from like Fallout 4 to Skyrim. But you can go from Skyrim to Fallout 4. It's just like going from Fallout 3 to New Vegas. It's weird, but as long as it is just that blank world space, you can easily convert it up. And once you have that, you have a blank world space. Not a blank world space, a blank height. So if say for example you take a height map of the Seattle region for Cascadia, like the Puget Sound and the region around it, and you export that in, and then you have that full terrain area to work with. You still have to generate your LOD, which you should always use Test 5 LOD or whatever the Fallout 4 equivalent is to generate, because you'll get better, finer results than with Vanilla Creation Kit. And Vanilla Creation Kit will fucking flatten your land. Literally, it'll completely expunge the records. So if you're gonna use Vanilla Creation Kit, at least keep it backup. Be smart.
So there's a lot of technical details you're going into here that people. So it sounds like they should definitely just watch your full tutorial. But let's stick with the broad strokes so we don't get anybody lost in the weeds.
Run it through Tess Anwin. Once you have that, pull it up to Fallout 4. There you go. You have your world space. Generate LOD so it's a little bit easier to find your way around. And then once you have that, you can do a bunch of fun stuff in the creation kit to get your map, which you could make in Photoshop or whatever else. And once you have that all lined up properly, there's a lot of values. Like I'm going to do a Fallout 4 one eventually now that I'm thinking about it. I'll write this down. literally this exact second.
So like if somebody has say somebody had step-by-step directions, like let's assume that there were a detailed walkthrough. How long does it take for somebody once just walking through the steps, or somebody like you who's done this a few times, to go from I've finished making my height map to I've got a world space that I could load up in the game? Like not necessarily, it doesn't have to be all fleshed out.
Okay, is
but
this
like,
first time or someone like
me?
me?
You could COC into it. Either way, like what for you, and then how long do you think somebody first time if they had proper steps in front of them?
From no idea until implemented into CK with blank world space?
Yeah.
For me, that
So like,
probably take me
COC
2.5 to 3
itself.
hours, depending on how much detail I go into with the height map itself.
Sure.
For
but
a first timer,
if you already had the height map done, I'm curious how long the actual technical steps take.
depends on the size of the height map, and because I have the experience necessary to know, how much to scale down the height maps by usually, because I know I've done it I think 40 times at this point. Just I did it like 30 times in a couple of days, just trying to figure it out, get the settings right, and you always have to do it like 4 or 5 times, almost always. But if I already kind of know the settings I'm going for, I have, let's say, a 2K height map 2048 by 2048. That itself will probably take 4 to 5 minutes to render, to generate the data of, because I have a pretty good processor, pretty good GPU. It just rams through it, and once that's done, you take that ESP up. So from start to finish, typing out the commands. Once I have that height map, probably 10 minutes tops.
Wow.
Per generation.
Time
it's the
so
generation.
The bulk of the time is building out what you want your height map to actually look like.
Yeah. So, and then once you have that data figured out, and then dialing in your settings. So it's like, say you want the top of your map to be at like 15,000 meters tall. In Skyrim and Fallout 4, that is fucking insane. Like, the middle in my project Far Cry, that's just a project title. The highest point in the game at the point of imported height map was 10,000 units, which is about 800 meters, and you can see it from just about everywhere in the world in the map.
Okay.
So that's from bottom of the world, which is under the water, to the top is about 10,000 units, and you can see it from everywhere. And that's only like 900 meters, because the scaling for Bethesda is freaking weird.
Yeah, well, they use the base units from. They got all their units from 3D Studio Max.
Yeah,
that's where they're getting them from.
And
so
the conversion
what did they do?
All sorts of weird.
Yeah, it is. I haven't figured out exactly where even 3DS came up with it. But what would it compare to if we talk about something I think most people will be familiar with? And I'm terrible with the names of things. But the main peak in Skyrim. Like where you find, what's his name?
Yeah, so that's actually not the highest point in Skyrim's height map, ironically.
Okay.
The highest point in Skyrim's height map is actually one of the inaccessible mountains to the east.
Okay,
it's
well,
like
let's go with the one that we know everybody would remember, though. You know what I mean? everybody's been up there to, what's his name?
The throat of Parthenox. Parthenox in the throat of the world. I want to say the throat of the world is around 18 to 20,000.
Okay, so it's a pretty good height.
Let's find out.
So that would be. So I don't know why you brought up the heights, but I was just trying to think of something relative, because I know how awkward it is to explain the unit system to people. Like I always am trying, like, well, your player character is like this many units tall, so you use that to imagine yourself laying down.
Yeah, no, we don't want to get into the specific what's the word? Details of that, because that's just oh god. So the throat of the world is actually only like 800 meters tall, with the conversion rates done on it.
Okay.
But that would be about, I think, twice the size of my mountain. So it's around 20 to 25,000 in-game units. So I think off the top of my head, players 128. So it's like 195 NPCs stacked from head to tail. That's a fun number for you.
I want to see that as a mod, please. Can I just have it?
Sure. Give me like 3 minutes.
All right. So why were you bringing up the max height? I didn't know where you were going with that.
No, that's just a funny aside. That's it.
Okay.
But no, like you can get a lot of height depending on the bit depth of your height map as well, which is another technical thing. So like the lower bit depth, the lower the map can actually go. So with Morrowind modding, if you're for some reason doing a height map in Morrowind these days, you're probably not going to go above like a 16-bit 2K image, because that's a lot of data for Morrowind. I think the cell sizes are about half the size.
Okay.
So whereas our Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, given that you said, so you think like the technical aspect of once you get it figured out is just 10, 15 minutes, depending on your computer speed. And most of the time is laying out your height map. It seems that
it's 10, 15 minutes depending on height map resolution primarily.
Sure. But that's all technical like steps, right? Like you're typing in a command and you're running through, letting something run.
Yeah.
But the actual creative work takes the hours, and it sounds like everybody who wants to get in. It sounds like everybody who wants to get into this should do the exact same thing you did, which is just spend a day, generate 30 different things so you can understand how your little tweaks affect it before you commit. Because I would think that if your resolution is at the wrong level of detail, then you would have like bumps that would be too large compared to the player character, or things would be much flatter than you expected. And so like taking the time to iterate over and learn what your changes are going to do before you commit 4 or 5 hours to actually making your final map is probably worthwhile.
Yeah, so one sec. I actually have the Aldos height map right here, so I'll actually put that down as soon as I remember where it is. Aldos 2K. So this is the actual raw height map that I imported in this stream. Okay. So it took me about 2 hours. Oh, of course, it doesn't allow you to just look at it.
That's all right.
So it took me about 2 hours to make this. So this is a slightly done up in Photoshop version. It doesn't take very long once you know like where your water height is and roughly fun stuff. I actually go over it in the stream, but that's the height map with like the rough water level and a cell grid on it. So you can see just roughly how big it is and all that fun stuff. That took me about 2 hours to build out.
So that's a Photoshopped file. You added that extra stuff to get a feel for it. Now, what does it look like before it gets to that point? Is that what that TIFF is? If I open that TIFF in a
I can just send a screenshot real quick of that.
Yeah, I'm curious what that looks like because
it's a grayscale image.
Post all this stuff for everybody else to see. I'm always
all it is just a grayscale image. You'll see it's actually reversed on the y-axis. That's a funky thing with Tess Anwin. It'll just reverse it on the y-axis. So keep that in mind.
Interesting. So all those like the stuff around the island, like those dark valleys and stuff, that's going to be
underwater,
ground level under the water, right?
Yes, that's just extra detail under the water. So when you're walking around, it's not like completely flat, barren land.
Right. So if you decide to go swimming and
that's just a noise modifier that you can use in the creation in the program.
Sure. So you don't generally bother with that stuff by hand.
No, in fact, most of this is random generated noise, and then you can build out your shapes, throw some noise on it to like weather it out, and then you just throw more modifiers onto it, which you can see in the stream, like I said.
And this is the value. This is the value of that World Machine program.
Yeah, because
it helps you do all that. Yeah,
it's very quick, very iterative, and somewhat mostly realistic looking height maps. So with Skyrim, the way you can do it, it can be a little bit too much occasionally. In that, if you go too deep with your channeling, for example, on like on the erosion passes, like it'll look really good at a distance, but most of it's gonna be wiped away by the time actual landscaping starts.
Okay.
Just because it's like the valley is half the size of a human and it's just a straight drop. Like it doesn't look great up close, but it looks good at a distance.
Sure.
So you can get away with not doing as much work in like far LOD stuff than you can closer up.
Got it.
But most of the time for height maps, to get back on track, is the creation of the island itself. The height map importation is anywhere between 2 to 20 minutes, depending on the size. Okay.
Interesting. So people can watch you do this on stream, and then how far do you take it? So you take it all the way to blocking, or do you go even further than that? Do you
So I also run through region generation on one of these streams.
Okay.
Right?
And that's the combining groups of cell.
Region generation.
Region generation is like groups of cells, and like they represent this area.
Yes, and then you can generate objects within it. So, say for example, you want to generate a really large swath of forest, but you don't want to go hand place every tree and bush.
Right.
You can just be like, cool. Here's a bunch of trees. The trees I want in. These are the bushes I want in. You can set a bunch of values, and you just press generate, and it'll generate all those objects in a row.
This is something Flenarn was telling me about from Kissing. He was going to work on. They were going to be releasing a guide for doing that for Fallout 4 for people.
Yeah, no, it's a good system, but don't rely on it.
Sure,
because
you have to plan on getting in there by hand and doing some tweaking.
Yeah, which is something that is actually a problem over in Cascadia because they haven't done that. But that's a whole side thing.
Listen, a lot of work to do a world space.
I got a lot of shit to talk, but I also have a lot of praises to give.
I mean, there's a ton of this.
It's a huge area.
These are so much.
There's
so much work to do.
It's an insane amount
in building a thing, and there's so much technical stuff people don't think about. Like this little height map here, you spend a few hours, you have this beautiful island, you could COC in, walk around the world map, but you're at what, like the 2% mark? Like
wow, that's a generous number. That's like a tenth of a percent.
Right. It's such a small
scope.
piece of the actual amount of work.
Yeah.
Although from the visual perspective, it looks like it's the vast majority. When in reality,
100%.
There's so many underpinned things that you have to do. You've got a nav mesh. You've got to place all the items. You've got to
thankfully with
rebuild
WorldSpace
LODs after you place everything.
With WorldSpaces, thankfully you can
pathing.
Just generate.
Ugh.
Oh yeah, no, it's hell. Those are like the last 30% is nav meshing and getting everything to work and just testing. It is so much testing and running through your world. At some point, you start thinking your work is shit, no matter what you do, and that's when you have to take a week or two break, and then you come back and just do it again, or have someone else.
I also think that I agree. I think that's also why you need a support network when you're modding.
100%.
You need to have other people who can look at it objectively. Because I remember when I was getting ready to launch Sim Settlements, I was like, there's this little thing I've been working on. And the first few people I showed were like, dude, you have no idea how big this is going to get. And I was like, I doubt it. Because you get too close to it and you lose perspective on what you're actually creating.
You lose that sense of scope, which will, if you lose your sense of scope, your mod's done. 100%. Like, you'll crash and burn in 20 minutes if you don't know the direction you're going or kind of how big you want it. I know it's horrible and it's something everyone needs to do, but write your fucking ideas down and flesh them out on paper. And then give that paper to someone else and let them tear it apart. And then do it again. And then do it again. After your third iteration, then start. If you want a good project.
Say, if you're gonna do a big project, I agree.
Yes.
I would think if
small projects, just go for it.
Right. When you're trying to learn, I think but what I've found is the best way is to start with small projects that you can take to 100% completion. And that way you know how long it's going to take to do that idea.
Yeah.
So then when you have your little more grand idea, you'll have a somewhat realistic expectation of how long it's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you're not going in like, for your first mod project, I'm going to build Fallout Texas. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if that's your first project, you're not going to
a lot of these
it's not going to happen.
A lot of the large projects that are being announced these days are by the inexperienced developers, and they really start getting into it, and then they realize, oh, this is a lot of work, and they pull out. Like,
well, I would say most projects, I would say even the big projects that have succeeded, with very few exceptions, are being helmed by someone different than who launched them.
Oh, 100%. Cascadia was originally launched by Alex Bellatane. She's fantastic. Then there was another project lead that took over after her, and then Flynn took over after that project lead, because that was a dumpster fire. I joined like weeks after Flynn originally took command. Oh boy, that was a dumpster fire of a time. It was not great.
I think they mostly got their house in order now. But without going into that, the whole point is that these projects, this is not an uncommon thing. That a lot of these projects get started by people who are just overly ambitious, have no idea which direction this is going to go. But I think this is the case for Skyblivion and Skywind. I think are both under the helm of different people. I don't know. Beyond Skyrim is pretty.
Most of the Beyond Skyrim teams, as far as I am aware, their project lead is the same as it has been for at least the last 4 years.
Okay.
In most
how long
cases.
has that project been going on? I mean, a lot of these.
I think Cyrodiil started in like 2013 or 2012. Like there's been several changes, but the people that are now in charge have been in charge for years, and I don't think they're going to come out of it. Fallout Miami, their project lead, the original project lead, Micah 999, left a year and a half ago. Well, like a little less, a little more, one of the two. He left, and now it's being held by a different creative group.
I think what tends to happen is these people start up these projects with like, they're just playing around. They show other people, inspire them, and then not only does the project itself spiral out of control, but managing a team is.
Oh yeah, no, it's hard. It's
overwhelming.
It's really hard. Like, I'm just managing 20, and I get overwhelmed sometimes. Like,
right, and you guys are a chunk of several hundred potentially, right? Like,
it's half and half. So half of our team are Beyond Skyrim members who are very passionate about the region. Yes, it's a lore region. It's provincial. The other half are people I've brought in, or other people have brought in to help increase our chances of being accepted.
Okay.
But like, I mean, I'd be willing to show you without you giving to your audience, like the design document.
No, don't do that, because don't do that. I don't want to be tempted to share what you're working on. But
I'd be okay with
anyway,
this being
the point is you guys you're working with you have your little small squad, but then you're also
a devoted,
working with
talented
other
team
groups,
of incredible people.
and hopefully one day would be part of a bigger project. And I think those some of these giant projects, like just the number of people. Managing them and coordinating to make sure everybody has the information they need, is taught what they need, which is why you all have probably started this Arcane University, was realizing you need a pipeline to actually get everybody on the same page.
It was I think that was a big problem. I think the Arcane University started 2 years ago at this point. Okay. It's been around for a while. The big thing has been many of the people that join us have like their own way of doing things, and then when they join the team, a lot of creative issues arise. People start getting kind of defensive about their work, and it ends up with people splitting over just a difference in method. And so we are trying to kind of centralize the method so we can interchange workers really easily, which is a huge part of Beyond Skyrim, is that anybody that's on one team can go to the other without too much of an issue, as long as, the leads are accepting and all that fun stuff.
It's so funny you say it like that, because that's one of those things that sounds so terrible, but it's just the reality
necessary.
Of things, of like, like these projects are going to take multiple years. Like to do all of Beyond Skyrim is going to be like a 15-year project. Like if they were really going to take it to conclusion. Like,
we have some internal ideas of when things are coming out, but at the same time, like I'm hoping Far Cry is only an 18 to 24 month development cycle. I know it's going to be 36 to 48. It's going to take 3 or 4 years to get this thing done, but I've kept my scope really small. It's just one chunk. Yeah, it's not even a chunk. It's like it's a part away from everything.
Right. So there's all these. So like the full Elder Scrolls map is just monstrous.
It's
so
insane,
doing it all.
And we don't even know all of it.
So you've got to be, and people are going to have major family life events. They're going to change over. People are going to come and go. So you have to be able. The project has to be able to rotate people in and out. And it seems a little bit dehumanizing. That it's like, oh, you're just a replaceable cog in the machine. But
even I'm making sure I, as the project lead and project manager and project director, am completely replaceable at all times.
Wow,
That's
impressive.
I'm gassing someone up to take my place as creative director right now. He's so incredible. I'm very glad he's on the team. He's one of the best creative visions and one of the best ways of executing it that I've seen, but he has a horrible understanding of technical side. And that's what he can't do it. He doesn't understand the technical things, but my God, if he can't make beautiful shit. He does some gorgeous work, but he cannot design a level that makes sense for the life of him. It took him, I think, 3 months to get the hang of Git, which is a absolute necessity.
Git is
Git's a whole other bag.
When you first start playing with it, you're like, what are all these nonsense terms? What do you mean a pull? What does this mean?
Yep.
I mean, I hate Git, and I've been a developer for forever. So
I love it because
I love what it does. I love the power of it, but like trying to teach it to new people is like, no,
it's hell. No, like all they need to know is push and pull. That's it.
Right.
Like that's the bare minimum I allow people to learn is push and pull.
That's probably for the best.
I have a mini fridge filled with rock stars. This is not a good thing.
That's probably how you're able to do this many projects. And
no, I don't sleep. Who are you kidding?
No, who has time for sleep anymore?
But not your project leads.
So, what's that?
Not your project leads, especially when you have people from literally every fucking time zone.
Yeah, gotta be able to do those late.
Do you know how much it fucking sucks to manage a meeting when you have people from plus 10-year hours and minus 7-year hours?
Yeah, we've given up on trying to get everybody in the meeting.
Oh God, no!
Now our meetings are we throw out like a calendar of here's some potential meeting times. Let me know which ones you can make, and we just pick the one that has the most people present.
100%. I try to do the same thing as well.
But that's still it can be tough to keep everybody on the same page. But it seems like the Arcane University seems like such a great idea. So that's why
it is
a
fantastic
that completely
idea.
Take over because I'm obsessed with trying to teach people stuff all the time. For the exact reason.
Join the server, and I'll make you a teacher.
I've got enough teaching to do on my own because I am trying to teach all of the Fallout 4 programming I know to the world.
That's
a whole deal to that.
If you're trying to learn things, don't start asking questions first. Look through the documentation. Try to understand it. Try to do it. And once you get to the point of like, I don't get what's happening. Why isn't this working? then ask
Right.
someone else. Don't be like, I have a minor inconvenience, I'm going to go to the teacher. Don't waste the times like that. Honestly, like, a lot of the people are doing that in the Arcane University, and it's like, these people aren't going to be accepted. Because, like...
Well, this is one of my issues with schooling in general, is that it's very hard as the student to know what is a minor issue and what is a big issue. Sometimes you run into something and just your thing is just stuck. You don't understand any bit of why it's not working, and you don't know whether this is a deeper issue. Maybe you ran into a bug, and so that is where I love having a community to ask questions to, which is like, that's why part of our Discord server started out as for our devs, and then eventually we're just like, we need to just let anybody in here who wants to mod, because it sucks so bad to mod and not have anyone to ask.
It really does.
But then eventually it gets to a point where if if you're asking too many questions, don't be surprised if somebody says, hey man, like, you got to take a little bit of time and do some research on your own for some of this.
But like, as for a person who does implementation, level design, I do just about everything. I am horrible at hand drawing things, so 2D art is not my strong suit. But I still understand it. Like,
sure,
there's some people who just ask questions like every step of the way.
Right.
Like, they don't bother to try to figure it out themselves. And that's what I mean by the people that aren't going to be accepted. They're not going to make it super far. Because once they start getting into these issues of like, oh, I don't know why this isn't working, and it's not a simple thing, if they can't figure that out, no one else is going to be able to figure it out. So, like, you have to have those you have to have those wizards like Arison or Leon from Cascadia. Like, they're fucking wizards with Papyrus, with the creation kit, with everything. They understand it to the point of like, oh, you don't understand why every single thing of this all works? What a fool. Like, it's just so simple for them. They're just like, you don't understand the basic thing of the most complicated system in the game? What the fuck? It's insane. Like, those people are great to have around for help when you really need it.
Yeah.
But,
well, and I mean, those are the people that generally you want to avoid poking over and over again for.
No, because they'll kill you.
Because you're gonna.
They'll just rip your head off.
Or they're gonna quickly learn to ignore you. But I think that's where it's nice to have the. It sounds like you guys have this set up with Arcane Universities. You end up with the layers because you have all the other newbies with each other, and then
a lot of the time the people answering the questions are the other students,
right?
And that allows us, the teachers, to just kind of sit by and be like, okay, if they're getting their information wrong, then we'll correct them. But most of the time, we don't immediately answer questions. Unless we're, like, directly pinged, which happens way more than I like.
Yeah, the old ping thing is a problem.
You answer one question once, and then suddenly you have 100 pings a day.
Yeah, the whole question thing with putting students together, getting them answered. It's funny that how much misinformation gets passed around if you don't step in once in a while. I noticed this. I used to be a big supporter and was active in the Nexus Mod Authors Discord, and then once my project got going, I didn't have time for it anymore. But it would be, there was information that would get passed around, and people were sharing it like it was religion, and every once in a while I'd poke my head and be like, actually, that's not true.
That is very wrong.
But some of this stuff has been passed down from modder to modder since like Morrowind or earlier, because people have just gotten so used to doing certain things a certain way, they didn't they haven't realized that Bethesda has corrected it or made a different way or whatever. It's kind of funny how that goes. Is that we've got tribal knowledge in the mod community, which is, I think, is
it can be a good thing, but it's usually bad.
There's a lot of bad tribal knowledge too. There's a lot of knowledge that just keeps getting passed around that's just straight wrong and garbage.
Yeah, Fallout 4 is an issue, has a big issue with tribal knowledge, because very few things from the earlier creation kits actually translate over with Fallout 4 creation kit. A lot of it is new. Like, they redid so much with the Fallout 4 creation kit. It's really hard to go back and do things a different way, and then to go back forward and do things a different way. Like, the scripting system is about the same as it is in Skyrim, but there's so many more functions in Fallout 4. It's crazy.
Yeah. The nice thing with the modding community now is we've got so many tools available. It's pretty easy to take anybody's mod and deconstruct it and figure out how they did it. Like, we've got a really good, the CreatyChameleon PEX decompiler works very well. Like, get down to getting the variable names correct. It's very, very good.
That's something I need, because I lost the files of that the quest mod I gave you. Like, they got wiped by Steam. I don't have a backup anyway.
Yeah, you can definitely decompile the PEXs, which is great. So there's like, without outside of, I think the two places where we have a complete lack of understanding in the community outside of a few people are animation, which is starting to get spread around more, and then UI stuff is a very, very small
UI stuff
people
for
who know that.
Skyrim and Fallout is hell.
I wish,
because it uses
I wish they
Flash.
would switch to something else.
It uses Flash. Why? I'm sorry for that peak. That was horrible.
That's all right. I'm sure I've peaked worse. Because I keep my
mic
like
a solid red block. Like, it's terrifying.
That's all right. We'll blow some eardrums out. It'll be fine.
Like, it's terrifyingly red.
Oh wow, that is very big. Maybe hopefully we'll be able to pull from my sound side because it didn't hurt my ears that bad.
Yeah, no.
But the UI stuff, I wish they would switch to something else because there's nobody learns that. I mean, Google is full on just cutting off all
every time you open Chrome, it's like
Chrome
turn it off. It's like I have a year and like 3 months. Stop telling me to turn it off now.
So that's just being full on discontinued on web browsers, which is where it was invented for in the first place. So
now it's being used in video games.
All right, and now you see it still being used in like 76, so they haven't bothered to upgrade it. Hopefully, with the S6, we get something new, something that's moddable too. I got to imagine they have to see how much
people want the modding,
and how much we bend over backwards to make sure that we have moddable user interface. Like one of the most important mods to come out for these games has been the MCM series, just so that we have a central location to actually organize and set up settings.
So there's not like 1,000 tabs to do the same thing. It's great.
Right. Yeah, or the nightmare of holotapes in Fallout 4 where you load up your game and you get 40 holotapes dropped in your inventory. It's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, armor and weapon keywords. Oh, God, thank God for that, too. With Fallout 4's system, like, without that, Fallout 4 modding wouldn't have gone anywhere.
We would have just it would have been quite a we would have just had patch nightmares everywhere.
Yeah, and everyone would have been like, I'm not bothering with this, and they'd stop doing it within the first year.
Even with AWKCR, we still have a division because of Xbox, because that mod is too big for Xbox users. So then any of the weapon mods that release on that either have to force people to download this massive mod, which takes up a huge chunk of their space, or they don't, and then they are required to then manage two versions of their weapons, which like I hate having to manage multiple versions of a mod because on Bethesda.net everything has to route through one directory.
Yeah.
So then if you overwrite the wrong files, you're gonna break everybody when you patch. It's just not fun.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. But that's a whole different ball game.
Totally different ball game.
Yay
so
for
let's
derailing.
let's go beyond derailing everywhere. So Arcane University, this thing seems fantastic. I think it seems like anybody could benefit from this who's looking to
anybody who wants to. It is the best place to start learning and to see if it's really what you want. Because we've had hundreds of people come in and be like, oh, I really want to help out. I think I could do this. And then they start getting into it, they're like, holy crap, that's a lot of work. Why isn't it just like press button to make mod?
Make mod, yeah.
Like they don't
are
realize
you all
how much work
against people coming in to learn, maybe not with the intention of I want to help with Beyond Skyrim, but just I want to learn how to
100% all for those people. Awesome. Those are the people I prefer usually, because they're the ones with more ambition.
Okay.
In a way, and those are the ones I try to get into Beyond Skyrim, because those are the ones that'll learn it because they're like, I'm genuinely interested in this and I want to know this stuff. And once they do know that stuff, their limits are limitless at that point. So then you start bringing them into your projects, and they really they go. It's great.
Right. Well, and so one of the things you mentioned earlier is that a lot of the Fallout 4 stuff doesn't backward compat to the other games, but it's the other way around is true, though. It's like a lot of the things you learn for Skyrim, you can go ahead and use in Fallout 4. So for people who have been following my series or learning from me, this might be a great way to get some more information faster, because I can only deliver content so fast, is that you need to get more sources. This seems like it could be a great spot.
It's also very quick feedback. So with level design stuff, usually within a day, because there's not as many level design teachers. With quest design, it's a weekly thing. There's a dedicated teacher who will give you detailed, objective feedback on everything you write. And there is a specific course, I think it's a 5-part course, that'll get you the basics of quest writing. Obviously, you still need to know how to write. We're not going to teach you that part. Like, we're not going to teach you plot structure. We're not going to teach you grammar. Like, if you don't know that stuff, don't bother with it. But once you learn the formats we use, and you learn how to do everything that would be required of a writer within reason. So, like, quest writing, character writing, dialogue writing, lore writing, note writing, which is pretty much everything. you
And
learn.
are you actually showing? So you're showing the quest writing side of things. Then do you show the implementation in the creation kit as well?
Yeah. So some people actually will be. Some of the people that learn quest design will be like, oh, I want to learn how to do that in implementation, and then they go do the Bendu Oro quest, which is like a quick little thing. You make a dungeon, you make 2 characters, and you make a quest where you go and get a guy's amulet back. That's all it is.
Oh, right. That's
a Bethesda tutorial.
I think
Yeah.
Bethesda did it. Yeah, they released that on the
A lot of people will do
creationkit.com
that, and sometimes they'll take their once they do that, they'll be like, okay, cool, I think I can do this and translate it into my own mod now.
Okay.
With me, when I first learned implementation just a year ago, I just took an idea and was like, cool, let's write this out. Okay, let's figure out the systems now, and I just went for it for 3 days. Which, did you actually play that?
What's that?
Did you actually play that?
Play which?
Bunny Bandits, the quest one.
I did not.
You should. It's only like a 15-minute quest mod.
Okay.
It's nice, little fun, and anybody can play it, but it is buggy, so feel free to put that in the description. It is a buggy quest, and I didn't have a chance to fix it all.
But it's also 15 minutes, so it's not going to kill you if you run into a little issue.
Yeah. It does a couple of weird things. Like, I kind of hand wave a couple of things. I do a little bit of D&D because I'm very much so a tabletop person. So I'll describe as you walk through the waterfall, stuff like that.
Okay.
It's a nice little thing. It adds a little town called Falkirk, southwest of Markarth, right next to that bridge across the river.
Yeah.
It's a nice little detail. You'll find it. I think it's marked on the map automatically, but not fast travelable.
All right, right on. Quest mods are always welcome. I actually haven't played Skyrim in quite a few years. It's been creeping up on me and wanting to do it because I found before I started modding Fallout 4, I was in a pattern where it was like every year I was replaying some Bethesda game. I'm just addicted to this.
I just started New Vegas again.
Oh, nice.
I had Fallout 4 at the same time.
Oh, fantastic! Keep a couple going. I wish I had. I don't know. Well, that's again. This is why you don't have time for sleep.
Yeah, no. I only play it
mod
once a week. I don't
Sure.
play games very often at all. And when I do, it's I'll play one game for a week, and then I'll jump to a different game, and then I'll jump back to a previous game. I got the same 5 or 6 in a cycle.
I'm stressing out right now because Outer Worlds is about to release, and I'm like, when am I gonna have time to play this? I need to play this.
I'm not worried about
I haven't
it.
seen anything from Obsidian in a long time.
Pillars of Eternity is where it's at, man. 1 and 2 are
I never
great.
played Pillars of Eternity.
You should.
Never played them.
Pillars.
I have so much trouble going back to that style of game anymore.
Isometric.
Or doing isometric. Yeah, it's something. I'm
I
so
love
disconnected from it anymore.
I love it. Pillars of 2. The writing is so good in Pillars of Eternity 2. It's not even funny how good it is. It's unfair.
I mean, it's one of those ones that's been on my list to I should just make myself play it, but every time I go back, because I grew up on those Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, and the original Fallout, and those were so excellent. And then I was fighting the switch to first person when Fallout 3 came out. I was like, no, I'm not touching that. I waited a year to play it. I wanted nothing to do with Morrowind. No, RPGs need to be isometric. And then as soon as I tried Morrowind, I'm like, okay, I was wrong.
I love Morrowind. I go back and play that every year. In fact, for 6 years straight, I would be playing Morrowind from the last 3 hours of the year until the first 6 hours. I'd play it through New Year's for 5-6 years straight. It was the same playthrough on the original Xbox.
Oh man,
yeah, no, it was great. I started it 2013, and I kept playing it for years, but I only played it once every couple months.
Once a year. Yeah.
Once a year, once every couple months. Occasionally, I'd just pop in, go do a quest. I think I only ever did 3 quests. Most of the time, I was just running around stealing pillows.
Right. I never did anything useful. I never finished the story in that game. It was always I was just finding how creative ways I could break the game. How can I get super rich and make myself god tier spells?
Oblivion is the only game, only Elder Scrolls game I have actually beaten the story of. I never beat Skyrim. I think the furthest I got into Skyrim was Kynes Grove, ever.
Really?
Yeah, no, I never bothered with it. I
definitely didn't do it right away. It definitely took me a long time because I tend to get to be a completionist when I start playing these games. To me, as soon as I finish the main story, then I'm done with the character. It's all right, you're retired. So then I never want to do it.
I just never wanted to do it because it's kind of a crap story. It's boring. I never enjoyed it.
I think you can argue that for pretty much all of Bethesda stories, but I still argue that they're necessary. You need to have some big conflict going on so that it makes the world feel like there's some pressure and that there's something happening.
Yeah, which is actually a problem I had with my project. I think in the 5 months we've had the project going, it's only been 5 months, we've rewritten the story, the main quest line, 4 or 5 times. I know, it's been 6.5 months, so from the original Aldos, we've written it 6 different times. And we
are you trying to make sure that you have just a suitably epic conflict going on, or are you trying to make sure you don't have something that's low tier Bethesda quality that no one wants to play?
We're trying to make sure that the story is connected to the location. Okay. We want to make sure the story is good. We want to make sure it's compelling. At first, the first couple quest lines, except until the latest version of it, all the quest lines were based around characters rather than location or lore of the world. It was always based on one character named Bastion, who is... I could talk about him because he's in the original Aldos streams. He's carrying over into the new version of Far Cry, but it was always based on him. And for a long time, everything was reactionary. Until recently, and now we're actually planning things instead of just reacting to like, oh shit, we need a story. This. Good enough, let's go. Like, we're actually planning things out and figuring out, what will be good versus what will work. Sure. And the new story is, it's saucy. It's spicy. It's gonna be a good story.
So how do you find a balance? This is something we've struggled with on our team with story stuff. Is the amount of effort that it takes to implement any story at all is monumental. Like it's taken a team of us to about a year to do, and we're still not even done with just like one like good main quest worthy storyline.
How long is your quest line?
I think it's going to end up being 22 quests.
That's why that's literally double the length of any Skyrim or vanilla quest line.
Still, it's even if we did it halfway, we're talking about 6 to 8 months to get it fully fleshed out, developed, written, get all the voice actors cast, and this is with minimal player choice, where we don't have decisions.
It's just kind of a linear,
right. Just to do a linear story takes that much time. So
does.
Adding in player choice expands it, can be exponentially depending on at what point the forking hits in your storyline. How do you guys find a balance on the team you're working on or on teams you've worked on otherwise in order to make sure you give players a sense of freedom and some agency while also keeping it reined in so that you don't spiral out of control with feature creep?
It's iteration is the biggest thing there, honestly. Most of the time it's like, when I have an idea, it's either completely linear, like this is the story, it's a very cinematic type of story, or it's a D&D style story. It's like, you come to a crossroads, there's 80 things you can do, and each of those things will have different endings. Like, it's just a fucking butterfly in my brain all the time.
And so which approach are you taking for the story you're working on now? Are you
for Far Cry? We are doing
linear?
No. We're gonna have this be a relatively branching main quest line. It is actually involving the factions again. There's the ending. It's all gonna be a very similar ending, but not the same ending. No matter what path you choose, like there's gonna be different paths that lead to slightly different endings. But it's more of the actual ending of the story. If you look at it plot wise, the story is going to be pretty linear, but world-wise and character-wise, it's very branching because there's different paths each character can have.
A different character would pop in at a point, or another. They might mention something that you did.
Yeah, so like exactly. So your actions will affect the world and the characters more than the story, which I think is what people mean when they say branching narrative. Most of the time, a narrative isn't actually branching.
Well, I mean that's the thing is when you hear people talk, it sounds like everybody wants the impossible. Like when you talk to the player base, like I want all of my decisions to have an impact on how the main story plot plays out.
Thing to keep in mind when making mods, the players don't know what they want, and what they want is dumb. Go forward with that and make the best game you can. Make what you want to make, not what people want you to make. If you make what people want you to make, only 5% of them will be happy. The rest will hate it.
I just watched I'm trying to remember which YouTube channel I was watching. I've got a few on game development that I follow, and somebody made the point of when players complain, you should pay attention. But when they present you a solution, you should take it with 6 grains of salt, because their intuitions about how to solve problems are very wrong often.
Almost
because it
always
takes a game designer to understand the problems, or to understand the solutions. But if they are finding a problem, they're probably correct, because if it bothers them, then you should probably pay attention to it.
Yes,
Which I thought was pretty good advice.
That is a very good way to go about it as well. However, with mod projects, it's a little bit harder to do that.
Right.
That sort of advice follows for like competitive shooters mostly, which I'm also working on a competitive shooter. Well, semi-competitive. Like
why not? Why not? Add one more thing
it's
to
a
the
mobile
pile.
shooter, and it's really fun. And I have like $800 worth of shooter sounds now. It's great.
I don't know how that's possible to have that in the same phrase. Mobile and good shooter. Come on.
Oh.
Get out of here.
Okay, if I actually told you what was on, you'd make fun of me, but I'd get paid for it.
I hate mobile games so much.
That's fair. But this actually plays fairly well. Like, it feels good to play, which is really weird to say. I know it sounds wrong, but it does. It's right. It's correct. Like, it does feel right to play. It's like the way you would hold your phone naturally sideways. Everything is just perfect, right where it needs to be. It's not like you're trying to play claw on a phone. Like, why would you do that? No, you can just use 2 thumbs. That's all you need. And you can use gyro to look around a little bit when you're aimed outside. It's fun stuff. Regardless, back to the original point, like, the player really, they think they know what they want, but they don't. Like, everyone thinks they know what they want, and everyone wants to be a game designer and a modder so they can make exactly what they want, so they can make their perfect project. And then when they get around to it, like, oh, no, that's actually not going to be that great. Or it's like, oh, no, that's going to be a lot more work than I want to put in.
Sure. I find that on my own projects all the time. Is I'll start to pursue, and I'm like, I want to do this, I'm going to add this, I'm going to add this, and then I do it all, and I'm like, actually, I just created a system that's not very fun. It's very deep, but it's not fun. And so then I'm like, all right, now I got to cut some stuff. And then I'll see people requesting features, and then I have to be like, well, I actually tried that, and it's straight garbage. Because you can get it's real easy to get ambitious about systems and thinking like, oh, this would be fun. And really, I think where the fun is for us designers is more in the implementation. Like, it was a fun journey to figure out how to do that, how to make it work, get all the interface working, and like that was the actual fun. But then when you're in there as a player, it's like, okay, this is boring garbage.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, the biggest priority should always be fun. If something isn't fun, why are you making it? And as someone who's writing a tabletop RPG as well, wouldn't you guys? God,
how do you divide up time when you do that many projects? I've found I've had to like cut a lot of my projects out of my life to make sure that I actually get things done.
Because I have the luxury.
I've gone through phases of my life where I do that same thing you just described. Of like, I got this going, I got this going, I got this going.
Because I have the luxury of not having to work a 9 to 5 job. Because I make enough money doing the mapping stuff that I talked about earlier that I can do my other stuff still. I can spend the time to do the things I want to do right now up front before I really have to, start dropping things. So I actually carved out specific days in my schedule. I have a 4-day work week, Tuesday to Friday. So Tuesday, like today, is an open work day. I work on whatever. Doesn't matter. I'll work on whatever I want. Wednesday, tomorrow, is mobile shooter, so I'll work on 3D models. I'll work on gun tuning or maps. Thursday and Friday is mapping, so I'll draw out maps. Saturday is always D&D, so I'll use that day to prepare D&D stuff. I'll use that day to write stuff. If I'm playing that night, I'll use that day to do other things. Sunday, I usually hang out with a friend and paint minis, so that's a nice little relaxing time. And Monday is just whatever. That is just a whatever day.
Wild card day. I used to do the exact same thing you're describing. I've had one day for a specific task. I find that is a great way to go, because then
if you
can allow yourself to get. Well, yeah, you have to be willing to stick to your schedule. But one of the nice things I found about that is that I didn't. Before that, I was on a schedule of trying to do like, all right, from 11 to 2, I would work on this particular project. And what I would find then is if an emergency came up, then that time would get lost and I would never be able to do anything. Or if I needed to go deep into something, where it was like I need to go way into the tank and figure something out, there wasn't enough time in those blocks. But doing it a whole project for one day, the nice thing is like if something needs a dedicated focus on that project, I can do it throughout the whole day. And
exactly.
I think that works really well.
I'm also very willing. I'm 100% on the board of as well. Just be like, okay, you know what? I worked on that all day yesterday, and that is the scheduled day, but I'm not done with it, and my brain is still going on that. I will carve out this day, and next week I'll do the opposite. So I'll give the other day to the other project. for example.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So
yeah,
these days,
sometimes if you're not at a good stopping point, you don't want to lose your momentum.
The big problem I am having is sticking to the schedule, and like waking up at the 8 a.m., going to starting to work at 10, ending work at 6, taking my breaks, taking my lunch. I am very bad about doing that. Very bad.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you just crack a rock star and just keep trying to keep going. And that's yeah, I feel you on that. Actually, one of the things, the changes I made a few months ago that I've been a very big fan of is now I've cut myself down to 2 projects at a time, and I alternate weeks, and that has been working fantastic for me. Because I was realizing I was doing exactly what you just described. I was too many times I was like, all right, I need to keep working on this one, and then that one gets pushed back.
Don't overwork.
And then the next week it doesn't happen, and then I was like, then projects falling behind. I was like, all right, let's just put a pin in some projects. We'll come back to them when we free up some time.
Yeah, and
it's a tough balance.
I mean, on top of that, like I have a schedule, and I'm relatively good at keeping about it. I also have mental health issues like depression and anxiety really badly. So some days it'll be like, oh man, I'm doing great. This is awesome. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. I'm going to get so much done. And then I get there at the computer. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do anything right now. And it's no, it sucks. Because it's like, it is highs and lows on way too high of a frequency. So it's
you almost need to take your highs and just embrace them.
100%. And that's kind of how I was overworked. So it's like, with schoolwork, I failed senior year. I dropped out halfway through it as well. And I went back again to do again. Within the first semester, I did 2 semesters worth of classes and the semester itself.
Wow.
I would blast through an entire online class in about the course of 2 days, 2 or 3 days each. Whereas normally that'd take an entire semester.
That sounds like the highs of cocaine more than the highs of depression.
It's just because I know the stuff already. I just never did the work and I never showed up. So I could blast out the entire class in 3 days. Don't do anything for 2 weeks, blast out an entire class in 3 days. I did more in the semester than 90% of the people in the class who were working every single day. Just because I work very quickly and very efficiently.
Sure. So let's take it back to modding for a second here, because I know you're running out of time here.
No, I'm not actually. I got plenty of time now.
Okay, cool. I know you had said you could guarantee an hour and a half, so I didn't want to.
We can go over that now.
So having modded both, and it sounds like you went from Fallout 3.
I have modded every version of Bethesda since they released modding tools. I have modded Morrowind, I have modded Oblivion, all of it.
So, but it sounds like you did some Fallout 4 stuff, and then you went back to Skyrim. How has that been? Because that seems miserable to me.
it was at first.
Okay.
Because it wasn't like I wasn't going from working every single day for hours a day in Fallout 4 Creation Kit to every single day working hours a day in the Skyrim Creation Kit. There was a couple of months of difference there. So the muscle memory of the Fallout 4 Creation Kit had mostly left me. You know, obviously I still tried to alt-scroll through assets.
Looking for buttons that didn't work.
I did. I still did that. Because it comes back like that for me. Like, I can forget something for months and then look at the thing and be like, oh, I know exactly where this is. And just be good.
Okay.
So when I first reopened the Skyrim Creation Kit, I was like, alt scroll. Fuck, that doesn't work. Control. There's no material stops. And then it took me, I think, 3 or 4 weeks to get back into the groove of Skyrim. But I actually now do occasionally swap between, and I can work about twice as fast in the Fallout Creation Kit these days than I do in the Skyrim Creation Kit. But I don't really work very often.
That alt scroll thing is.
Oh god, it saves so many lives. So many lives.
If you're interested in doing level design, the best thing you can do for yourself in Fallout 4 is drag a piece into the world and hold on the alt key and scroll your mouse wheel and watch the magic happen.
Also, alt dragging so awesome. Is a fucking godsend. Holy
what is alt dragging?
If you left click, alt and left click and drag something, it'll put it on the face of whatever. So you can take a tree and just
where it attaches things, right?
That doesn't exist in Skyrim.
Oh man!
Like you can snap to things like the Control Shift A and I think Shift A are super awesome to have because you can match orientation like in a snap, literally.
Right.
But you can't alt drag, so you can't put like a tree perfectly on a surface. You can't match the bottom of a rock to the surface of the land, which is a problem sometimes, but most of the time it's not that bad.
Yeah, the alt dragging for putting posters on the walls in Fallout 4 was fantastic.
Yeah, no, it saves so much time. But you can still do that in the Skyrim creation kit, but you're not really going to be putting that many posters up.
And I remember accidentally discovering the material swap thing. I think it's Alt Shift scroll.
Yeah, Alt Shift scroll.
Or something like that. Yeah, and then I was like, oh my god, there's materials for almost everything. Like there's so many material swaps to get new versions
Yeah, and then you can make new material swaps in a couple of minutes at most.
Yeah.
Making new materials is a whole different ballgame, but new material swaps are pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, new materials are that took a while for people to figure out how to deal with those.
Yeah, I think it took what 6 months.
Settings were. Because I remember we had the material editor pretty quick, but just people hadn't figured out what all the little flags meant and like, what is this thing gonna do? There's still a lot of them that are kind of mysterious.
It's like learning BSX flags for modeling. The modeling.
Scope.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell is the unregistered bit at, I think, 16? it does mean something, but it's not named. Set on some, and you're like, oh, God, do I need
it's set on some models. What is this for? I don't know if I need it. I still do it all the time in my Fallout 4 models where I've just got some bits flagged because they are flagged on a lot of other Bethesda models. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but just in case. And it doesn't hurt anything. And it also doesn't hurt anything if I uncheck it, so it's not really sure which way to go.
Sometimes it's like
that's one of the most painful parts about modding these games is that you can see Bethesda cares. Like they care about modding. They make sure to put the tools out. They make sure it's available. In fact, they even made the push of it's now available on console. So they understand. So I don't understand why they don't have. I mentioned
really good documentation.
Why don't they have either really good documentation or just put one of your guys, hire somebody even. Like, okay, your entire job is to interface with the mod community and get them information so that they can make better mods. Like
they really should do that.
It'd be a drop in the bucket, and one guy could do a ton of damage. Like,
oh yeah, I know. Just one guy that actually has the right tools, and you'd be like, no, you need to do this. Holy crap, we would have had animated creatures for Skyrim in earlier than 8 fucking years after the release of it. Like, it's been 8 years. It just seems like that would be. And we're just now getting actually custom creature behaviors for Skyrim. Like, what the fuck? Whereas Fallout 4 took like 2 or 3 years before Leon really cracked it. Leon and Arison cracked it.
Well, and there's still problems with it, is that we don't have access to all the tools because Microsoft bought up Havok and shut that down on us. Yep. So we don't even have the official support for all that stuff, so it's like a lot of reverse engineering and doing XML file edits. It's kind of a nightmare.
And yo-ho-hoing occasionally.
Right. 20
out of necessity.
2013, anybody? Right. Like it's like I'll happily buy it. I got the cash. Autodesk, you want some? No? Okay.
Okay, fuck you.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain that we're working with those tools. But I would think that Bethesda, if they're clearly using mods as kind of a value add of being like, hey, it's kind of like Halo Infinite is banking on the bringing back all the levels from all that people have put out in all their old games of like, this is a big selling feature. And Bethesda tries to do the same with mods. It's like, how much could it cost? I mean, how much it would be? Not only would it be a relative small cost in their total operation to have one guy on staff doing this, but it would add infinitely more content. And it would just be a big, like, the community, we would be even more in love with them for it. So, like, we would double down our support.
I would probably support Bethesda more if they had a guy like that just around.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of the large projects like Cascadia, Fallout, I don't think Fallout Miami does. I know Cascadia had, I think, 2 or 3 Bethesda employees on server who would occasionally point stuff for the project lead and other people. Just so it's like, hey, you guys, you're doing really cool shit. We're showing around the office. And like, that was really incredible to hear that one of the things I did, which ended up getting cut, they showed it around the office. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Hell, I think one of the screenshots.
And they still have still do have those people. Because there are a couple of people, that are out and about that are pretty. They're pretty open to just chat, but they rarely can get you useful information. Is what
I think it's like a legal thing. Like they literally just can't do it. Because
it could be, and it's also I think a case of they don't want to be a bother to, like, I don't think it's their job to do this, so they're just being friendly to the community. Like some of the community management team was very open to just chatting on Discord and whatnot, but they're not necessarily going to have access to the animation engineer who created the integration with the behavior system. Like they're not going to be able to just go talk to that guy and get our questions answered. Which again, I think it would be an easy job to create. You could just send an email, hire a modder for it. And I bet there's a lot of modders out there who do this stuff who aren't working and who know this stuff backward and forward, who they could hire for at a pretty good rate and put in such a position, and they would be ecstatic to do it.
I actually applied for Creation Club not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
Just like
That
I
seems
have
like
the
it might
skills
be.
to
That
it.
might. Sure. Well, and it seems like it might be a good way to get information too, because if you're working on stuff officially for them, they would.
From what I've heard, they give
theoretically
you
hook you up.
They give you additional tools. Like they allow you source code access. I think is something I was told. That's a rumor. I don't know for sure, but like they give you the additional tools to actually make the stuff. From what I've been told,
right?
But I'm not quite sure.
That makes sense. I think you would have to have that, and this is again. I think they could go a long way toward that because I really think that Bethesda has a unique thing in their modding community. It's one of the strongest modding communities I've ever seen.
I think it is the strongest.
It's got a huge audience too. So,
massive audience. Millions.
So like so then that goodwill goes to the mod authors. Then they get to create better stuff, which then is just going to grow that mod audience, and those are all loyal fans of those games who will gobble up the next entry in the title.
Absolutely.
Or entry in the series. But
76, I know it was a disaster and a train wreck, but it actually makes me hopeful. Just because as a modder, I see all the issues we have with the engine right now, and how many of those issues were fixed in 76. In terms of like
how many new ones?
Oh god! Oh yeah! No, so many. But it's like how much more detail they have with the terrain. I think they doubled or they quadrupled
the terrain.
it.
Oh my god!
So instead of it being
terrain LOD
32 pixels per height map square per cell, I think it's now like 128. So there's 100.
Some of the shots,
a lot.
Some of the rendering it can do, the terrain is just amazing looking.
And the rendering engine is just that much better. Like it's actual PBR now rather than like the fake Fallout 4 PBR.
Although what's funny about it is I think one of the things I often see in Bethesda's games is their systems engineers are way ahead of their designers.
Oh yeah.
Because there's always the tools to do really advanced stuff, but then when you go in, it's like I think 76 most of the time, most of the like assets and stuff look worse than Fallout 4.
Yeah, that's because the textures were just copied over. Like they didn't actually redo it for the pipeline for a lot of them. Like there's a stark difference between the new 76 assets and the ones that were carried over from Fallout 4, and you can see it pretty easily a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the whole game is when I watch people play it, I'm like, I feel like the Fallout 4 that I'm in playing and modding every day just looks better across the board.
It's a little bit more stylized. Is usually what it is. Like Fallout 4 is more stylized than Fallout 76.
Which seems to be a smart play. Like I think the games that have done that, like something like you look at World of Warcraft, which has been around for how many years and still looks really, really good. I know that they did a big overhaul where they redid all the models at some point a few years back, but it still has the same basic style it did at launch and
same basic feel.
Great.
Yeah. I enjoy the stylings of past Bethesda games. Morrowind and Oblivion in particular are just fantastic. Like I said, I just recently replayed through Oblivion, and unmodded at first.
I can't do
it.
Like,
I know it's
get
mud,
Oblivion,
but it's a charming mud.
Okay,
it's like a mud that you kind of formed into the shape of like a little sludgy ball, and then put a bow on its head. And you're like, that's kind of cute, but disgusting.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Who knows?
I think the block for me is that I've become too linear of a player. Is every time I play Skyrim, I'm like stealth bow because it's so overpowered. It's like
Oblivion.
Stealth archer. That's all I want to do, and you can't playing archery
shield
in Oblivion is just terrible.
You play sword shield in Oblivion.
Okay.
Actually, Oblivion is the most open. Archer is not it's not the best because the arrows are so heavy.
Well, I just the mechanic of drawing a bow isn't very intuitive like it is in Skyrim.
I mean, it's the same. It's just a little bit slower, I think. It's not as.
I just remember when I last booted it up, it was really wonky. It just didn't work how I expected it to. I was just like, there's something off about this, and it drove me nuts to the point where I lasted like an hour in the game. Like, so I had committed then. I'm like, I'll play it when Oblivion comes out. That's when I'll go through it again.
Honestly, yeah, that's a fair point. I think the main. Oblivion is nice. Like it's just like a nostalgic warmth for me. That's it. Same as New Vegas, which is why I've been playing through it again. Just a nostalgic warmth. Feels nice to play through it.
Yeah. I think I have that for a lot of games, and to the point where I can't see that the game is actually not very good anymore.
Yep.
But I just have so much nostalgia feels for it. Like Grim Fandango is an adventure game that I could play
Never played it.
over and over and over again. I'm absolutely in love with that game. It's an old Tim Schafer game back in the
I've heard about it. I just never played
days.
it. Just never played it.
Yeah, it's the gameplay is probably terrible. I'm so enamored with it because I played it at just the right age where it's just nostalgia feels.
Yep.
Sometimes I feel like that's probably the case for Morrowind too. Whenever I boot that up, I'm like, oh, this is just so good. But I think it's the gameplay. If you compare it to all the improvements they've made over the years to the engine, it's probably, to anyone new, it's probably pretty tough to pick that up.
Morrowind? Yeah.
Yeah.
I never understood the game. Like, it's also a very comfy nostalgia for me, but I never understood the mechanics of the game until after I played D&D 3.5.
Okay.
Once I played the tabletop, I went back and I was like, oh, this is just D20, and I just fucking broke the game in like 3 levels. Like, you can just break the game so easily if you actually understand the system. And playing a tabletop, you just learn it like that. It's kind of insane.
Well, I think that was the beauty of Morrowind, is that you could just break it like that. They didn't try and balance it or stop you from going God tier, which is one of my big criticisms of games like 76 of everyone trying to force online. Is I would like them to do that, but get rid of the PvP aspect, so that way you can just let it be unbalanced, because that's part of the
unbalance is very fun. And even with 76, like, power armor is powerful in 76. Like, if you don't have power armor and you're PvPing against someone who does, you're just going to be stomped.
Yeah. But I guess you can see that they have gone to great lengths to try and keep some semblance of balance, and so they prevent you from ever getting to a point of overpowerness, which is, again,
I think
that's
God tier.
What we love. Yeah, like, we want to get God tier when we play a Bethesda game. That's
I want to be able to put a hat on and literally ascend to godhood.
That's part of it. It's like you start out as nothing. You're getting your butt kicked by skeevers, and then by the end, you just one shot, the end boss. Like, that's
while wearing nothing. You just punch them in the face
naked,
and they're dead. I actually do that.
So
all the time
are you guys gonna have what are you guys doing with your project as far as that kind of stuff is concerned?
In terms of balancing,
not naming what it is.
As
far as balancing, are you concerned about that much?
We are,
kind of
because we're the big thing with Beyond Skyrim and anything that will end up or is planning to fall under the banner is that it needs to feel like something Bethesda would have implemented. It needs to feel kind of vanilla. Mostly vanilla, Right,
but I guess what it seems like it would be a taller order there, because theoretically, I mean, isn't the idea with Beyond Skyrim that ideally you could start a character, you wake up on the cart, you go through the scene, and then you could eventually visit all of Tamriel. That's kind of the vision, right?
Yeah.
So how do you balance it relative? Like, I mean,
you just think of a level you want to start
have
with.
to scale,
That's it.
Or
you can do an everything to scale thing. With Far Cry, we are planning it for, at least I am, between like 20 and 25th level starting. So it's meant to be a bit of more of a challenge for slightly more experienced players. It's more of like a Dragonborn DLC.
Okay.
So it won't actually really start unless you meet certain criteria, and then once you get to those criteria, I think it's level 20 and has completed a certain quest or two to get to the Bastion part of the quest line. There's going to be a couple different ways to start it, I think. Once you meet those criteria, then you get an invite over to the location. You get on, you make your way there. I'm not going to give specifics, because if I start saying, like, the method of transport, people will know immediately where it is, or roughly the direction it is.
Sure.
You get there, you enter the town, you enter the tavern, you've talked to the people, and then you make your way over to where you need to go. And we're balancing for between 20 and 25th level, because we're kind of going for a... This is going to be a tough way to describe this without giving away anything.
Sure. Well, okay. So you're going. I guess what I was trying to get at is, like, when you think about the scope of that. So let's say 10 years from the road, the Beyond Skyrim team has accomplished their mission. Different zones are going to have different levels. I assume they'll end up alternate start mods will crop up all over the place to let you start wherever, and all that'll be amazing. But for somebody who wants to be like, I want to be a completionist and have one character go through all of that. I'd say to them,
no, that's not going to happen because of the script problems of saves.
Sure, right. That's gonna be one problem. But I was also gonna say, if we let's say we transcend that issue,
of course,
through Xedit or not Xedit, script extender, you have the problem of a lot of the content is going to be trivialized because it's going to be impossible to level scale all of that stuff correctly. So if you do 20 to 25, Cyrodiil, like if say Bruma does, I don't know what their level range is, but each of the level
Bruma
ranges
is like
eventually
10 to 30 start.
Okay.
Like it's a
but like if you went through all of just the Skyrim content, I mean, you can what's like I don't remember what the last time my level was when I finished. It was pretty high.
Off the top of my head, Skyrim's level system, leveling only actually goes up to like 80 for NPCs. They don't go really above 80 to 120 on average. So it's like once you do 3 quest lines and just kind of do once you've done half of it, you're to the point where you can just one punch anything just about. Like nothing's really a challenge. So I think most of the projects understand that, and we're not trying to balance for those people because we can't. Like
So you're thinking more. It's just gonna be for some low to mid range scale.
A new character or like most of them for Far Cry specifically, we're going for 20 to 25 level start is the ideal, just because we're gonna be doing some traps and some design philosophies that fit with like early 1920s adventure movies. We're being a bit campy and it's great. I love it.
Okay.
It's like
because it's
like a fun campy.
It's tough to figure out what the correct path to go is because there's I would say that seems like the correct way to go broad like that, because you're going to have a lot of people who are going to come back, give it a playthrough once, and they're not going to then get all the way in and do that. Like, I'm going to take one character and try and play through everything. That's going to be a very small minority of players who are actually going to do that. But I think all of us, when we set down to play a new character on Skyrim, like we have it in our heads, like I'm going to go through every single world space mod. It's going to be amazing. And you dream this up. You never follow through.
You get like
but it is fun to dream about that. Right.
It's like the scale of these
dream
projects
about that.
is just fucking insane. Like Cyrodiil is, I think, the largest of the Beyond Skyrim projects right now.
Okay.
And I think it's going to stay that way.
Okay.
I don't know how many quests they have, but like each county has like 40 quests or something. Like there's a lot of fucking quests.
Holy cow.
Don't take that as an actual number. I'm not on Cyrodiil. I haven't been on Cyrodiil for a year and a half. Disclaimer.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here, nurse. You didn't. Scratch that from the record. Bleep it. No. But it's a huge project. Like I think it's just so large. Like you can't, even if you do everything, you're not going to play through it like 6 times. So people can do that with Bruma because it's only like the top 10th of the world. Like it's not the entire province of Cyrodiil, which is
and I guess
insane.
I guess one of the beautiful things again about the size and dedication of this community is that you often in time is people will mod mods. So if the initial release of all of that is scaled to like a low to mid tier,
people are going to make higher challenges.
Right, somebody's gonna be like, you know what? I want to turn this into some sort of like MMO style where it's like there's a level curve so that you go through the content in a way that you can't finish the Cyrodiil content until you're level 150 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then that'll be available for those folks. So I think the way you guys are going about it is smart. It's just one of those things where I think if you were sitting down as a developer, that's something that might not occur to you until you're fairly well into the project.
So that's a big thing as well. Is most of the time you don't really start thinking about level scaling until real implementation starts happening, because you really can't be like, oh, this quest is going to be this level unless you have everything planned out along that line, which is what I'm trying to have enough of the project planned out ahead of time that we can do that. So we can have implementation, writing, and assets, everybody working at the same time.
Yeah.
To help get that 18 to 24 month time frame I'm looking to try to do.
Sure.
And
ambitious for any big quest.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, this is actually the land mass is just like 1.5 times Solstheim. It's actually a very small amount of land mass that is available to people.
Sure.
But
I think people have pretty high expectations for the quality of the content
absolutely
that's going to be produced.
And because of the location, we can't really use that many Skyrim vanilla assets. So we have to do a lot of assets. There's a lot of work up front that has to go into Far Cry right now. And the name is for a reason. A lot of people are probably going to understand why if they start really looking into it. And they'll People are going to figure it out.
I hope it has to do with Blood Dragon, because that's the best part.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Confirming it right now. It's Beyond Skyrim, literally 80s, coming March of 2014. Nice. Summer 2014. Sorry, damn it, I fucked it up. Classic meme. No, but it does have a reason for the name, and I'll give it this away. Yeah. It is a tropical setting. So we're doing the Indiana Jones, Nathan Drake style of vibe occasionally with the exploration.
Cool.
Is the goal, and so with that we can kind of plan ahead. There's going to be puzzle dungeons. There's going to be weird traps set by people of the land, stuff like that. So
yeah,
with that in mind, we can already kind of think, okay, there's a certain level of Skyrim character level they have to be at reasonably to be able to take these challenges on. Yeah. And 20 to 25 gives us a really good padding, so we don't have to be like, oh, we, just turn 3 stones twice and pull a lever. That's the puzzle. Hey. No, yeah. We can go like, hey, what the fuck is the square root of 64? You have 2 seconds. Go. Not like that, but we can be pretty harsh with it, and people will still be able to make it through those challenges, but they're going to be hard.
Okay.
And so with that in mind,
I think that was a terrible example of one.
Oh God, no.
Anybody who hates math is just pissed at you. Don't make me do math. I'm here to kill bad guys.
Right? That's the point.
And turn levers. I just wanted to turn some dials to shapes.
Let me have the sheep. No. But that sort of thing, Towers of Hanoi would be a fun one as well. We could do that in this, and it's just it's a simple math problem. It's just a little time consuming. Where was I going?
What's interesting to me with all of these Bethesda games is that I would actually, because they're open world, there's a limitation that happens that you have to assume that the character can come from anywhere. Yes. And that they have no particular skills, so everything has to be solvable right within itself, which is kind of it's a little bit of a bummer because you can't put any Metroidvania type elements in unless they're all self-contained.
Yeah, not within vanilla Skyrim, but because we're making our own world space. With our own balancing requirements, we can kind of get away with that. We can do kind of like the classic Fallout style thing. So Skyrim doesn't have leveled zones. No Elder Scrolls really, aside from Morrowind, really has zones that are meant for a specific level.
Okay.
But in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, there are definitely areas of the map that are obviously intended for higher level characters. So let's take New Vegas, for example, the Quarry. And the Cazador Canyon and the Quarry. Those are obviously not intended for first level characters. They're meant to be they're meant to dissuade you from going directly to New Vegas. They're meant to guide you down the path towards Prim, towards Nipton, up that way.
Right.
It's very intentional.
That's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite design things that's in that game.
And
of instead of being heavy-handed, being if you want to go over here, you
go ahead. You'll just fucking get cut.
Right.
Which is great. I love it very much. But it's people that have played it enough will just skip right past the death clause because they know the perfect route to take. Like me, I just know go left, zag a right, follow cliff. There you go. You pass the death clause and you're at the Repcon HQ or something like that. I've played it a lot. Regardless, with our project, we can get away with. We don't have to do that. We can expect that anybody's going to come from anywhere, but they're going to be a bit of a higher level, so we can throw a bit more of a challenge at them up front.
Sure.
And one of the other things we want to do is there's not really any confusing maze-like caves in Skyrim, and we want players to be able to get lost in the world, literally.
Okay.
Because again, we're trying to get that 1920s explorer vibe going on.
Sure.
So, with that in mind, and with the rough balancing level we're going for, we can throw new challenges at players that they aren't going to be expecting, and we can throw them at them in a way that vanilla Skyrim wouldn't have done it, because vanilla Skyrim is obviously meant for first level characters. Almost all of vanilla Skyrim is meant for below 10th level characters. There's very few areas that aren't, and so we can take that in mind and do what we want to do with the game.
Sure. Yeah. But I guess what I was getting at with the Metroidvania thing was the fact that you can't count on them having any particular skills, which is a kind of a bummer because and I found this that they embrace that fully in Fallout 4 and Skyrim of anytime something required say a higher level lockpick or a hacking higher level,
There's always
the password or the key somewhere for you to find.
Yeah.
So that all having those skills meant was a little bit of a time savings. There were no areas that you could exclusively get to because you got particular skills. And as a developer, that feels bad.
Feels
like
cheap.
It's like, but I want my thing to matter. Right, but then when I'm in there as a player and I decide to role play a character that doesn't have that skill, then I get annoyed that I can't do that thing. So it's one of those weird.
It's kind of a give and take with that as well.
Yeah.
Which is one of those we're not trying to do a thing of like you can only get into certain areas if you're built a certain way.
Right.
But we do plan on having it so like if you are built a certain way, you can bypass certain parts of levels. You can open up alternate pathways that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access and make it feel more like you're specifically making your own path, like you're carving out your own destination, which is always...
that adds a lot of complexity to your level designs.
Yeah, and that's why I've been... I am vetting our level designers very hard, because they do need to be able to make a good-looking level, for sure, but they also need to understand how to make a level. And
Right.
You know, like I said, with my senior level designer, is what he's called, technically co-lead. The senior level designer, he's the one that can make really beautiful work, but can't understand the technical side of it at all. So, with him and one of the others, they're more on the landscaping side of things. So, myself and my lead level designer, Chris, who I met from Cascadia, most of my leads are Cascadians, because there's so many talented people in Cascadia that I've met over the years. It's insane. But we're taking our extensive knowledge of level design in those techniques, and we're actually prepping out major dungeons. We're drawing them out by hand, scanning them in, iterating on them before we even start blocking out. So we can get that pathway figured out. We can figure out, okay, what skills are needed where, what can we get away with, how can we make this a bit more interesting?
Sure.
And a lot of the time we break off the grid, because the grid is very, very nice to have for a block out. But if you can make a level without the grid that looks good and looks reasonable, especially caves, you're golden. And that's something that I've done all the time. And
one of the things I think I've noticed that Bethesda does is it looks like they build on the grid and then they take the whole level and like shift and rotate it. So
they'll build.
They were able to take advantage of all the snapping and everything, and then it looks a little bit more interesting by getting it. Moving it off.
They either build on grid and then move it, or they move it and then build on grid from there. Because you can set your grid differently with Shift Q.
Interesting. What? Yeah, I do not have much experience at all in level design. I've done very, very little. It's usually like I take somebody else's thing, import it, merge it in, and then just make sure all of the previs and everything is done. And that's about as much as I've got experience with. But I can appreciate how much effort goes into and how important it is to focus on the level more as part of the mechanics and worry about decorating after the fact as opposed to worrying about building a pretty space. Because if you think about
there's a 50-50 there
real world locations. Okay, go ahead.
Like you were saying, real world locations, they're not meant to be pretty most of the time. And the ones that are still designed with functionality in mind first. Take a city park, for example. Like they're designed, honestly, learning park building is a really good way to learn level design in a weird roundabout way. Because you learn that, okay, you need to get from point A to point B. There needs to be certain things in it. So let's say we're building a dungeon, like a level 10 dungeon in Skyrim. Let's say it has 6 rooms. Okay, what are in those rooms? First room is probably going to be kind of an entry space to the themes and the thematics of the dungeon. So you need a writer on board to help write that out. Okay, that gives you a start. So you have your writer, your level designer. Level designer can probably do implementation, such as like traps and nav meshing, most of that stuff. Level designer kind of expected to do in terms of Bethesda stuff, but most of the time that's left for another person. So that's a 3-person dungeon for this 6-room, however many hallway, 10th level dungeon. You need a boss, and you need some loot at the end, so that gives you a way. If you want to follow classic Bethesda, you need a route from the end room to the main room. So you can only use the one entrance on the surface and save room for other locations. Fun fact.
Right. I also thought that was because it's really boring to have to backtrack through a dungeon.
It's that too. I mean, with Bleak Falls Barrow, you don't actually backtrack through the dungeon at all. It's a very linear dungeon, and then you exit out somewhere else. Most dungeons in Bethesda games, though, you end up pretty much within the same place you came out, you started in.
Right.
which is just so they can save space on the exterior locations. So 6 rooms, give or take. You can decide how big they are. Let's say you want 2 combat encounters and then the boss. So three total combat encounters. 3 of those rooms are going to be dedicated to combat. A couple of those rooms are going to be dedicated to loot and story. So decide how much story you want in the dungeon, then you level it out. So then once you have that planned out, figure out what the pacing you want is. Say you want this dungeon to be 20 minutes. Okay, so that probably doesn't mean... In terms of Skyrim, Fallout 4 is a whole different ballgame with the balancing of time budgets. Just because the guns changes fucking everything. Skyrim, 6 rooms, 20 minutes. You could space them by... It should take you about 2 minutes to go between rooms, and then about 3 to 4 minutes inside that room doing the thing. So, let's say you put a big...
So whether it's solving a puzzle or...
exactly. So let's say first room is just that entry into the themes, maybe a general, like, this is the enemy type, so the Draugr in Bleak Falls Barrow, or like the bandits at the start. Gives you something to kill when you first get in there, and it kind of starts introducing you to the area, and it continues the story from the exterior. So let's say this is a Draugr dungeon. Medium size entry point, have a Draugr tomb in there, like a dead body. So it's like, okay, this is a Draugr dungeon, maybe some spider webs to hint, maybe there's a spider somewhere in there. Maybe that's the final boss. It's like a giant spider, really big spider covered room. Second room should be probably the introduction to the story of it. Third room, first combat encounter, or the other way around. You can do combat encounter as second room and then story from there. And then once after that, a little bit of a reward. Then you get to your next combat encounter. This should be like a larger, like your second largest room. Probably like a 2-story room with a bunch of enemies that kind of do like a circling on each other. Kind of like a couple of waves. So it gives the player a little bit of a challenge. Reward room after that. Small reward. Then you can do a puzzle door to your final boss room. Get to your final boss room. Kill them. Get your loot. And then have your route back. So that's about a 20-minute adventure, give and take. Depends on how good the player is and how you balance your encounters. So once you have that figured out, you draw it out on paper. You look at it. It's like, okay, cool. How would that play? Think about it in your head and make sure you have your different levels laid out and all that, different pathways. Think if the player is this level, they might have this skill. Would they be able to bypass this to over here? Oh yeah, no, you do that. So then you write that in, and it's planning a level is a lot.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, I think it's really important because it's all about it's all about the feel and the pacing. And I think that one of the mistakes I see from people who are posting, again, when we go back to the people who post these big new world
I'm making a new project. They don't do the planning ahead of time most of the time.
Well, what they seem to do is they took a few real world locations and built them in the creation kit.
Oh yeah, no, with Fallout projects, absolutely, they just take a couple of real locations, build those exactly. Right. And then,
and I think the problem with that is like real world locations aren't designed to be played in. They're designed to be lived in with real world physics and mechanics, and so they don't. It doesn't translate well. There's so much more. Like I think you would always see Bethesda games would sacrifice realism for better games.
Exactly. Like if one example is Boston Common is a huge park in real life. In the game, it's literally like a block with a pond. The real Boston Common would take up literally the entire space that the entire city of Boston does in Fallout 4. If it was scaled appropriately. Sure. Like that's how big that park is. It's like 2 miles or something. And that really shows you that they sacrifice a lot of realism for gameplay. But they still get like the rough locations. They figure out, okay, with Fallout 4, world space creation is very different than Skyrim. So with Fallout 4, you decide your location first. You get your map, and then you smack your map down, figure out what major landmarks you need. So Boston, there are a lot of landmarks that need to be there, and that's why Boston is so fucking dense. Because without it, it doesn't feel like Boston. They did a really good job at making it feel like Boston without it being actually Boston. It represents it, but it is not. And a lot of projects will take a huge height map of the area and be like, we're going to build it almost 1-to-1. Don't do that. You need it. You can't do that. A 1-to-1 location is just hell for engines.
It would be incredibly boring.
That too.
And Yeah, and the game engine couldn't handle most spaces unless you did them so small that they're not a reason. Like it would be, you get these 3 city blocks, and that's all the game can handle.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up in a couple minutes here anyway, because I got about 7 minutes, and then I got to leave to go get my kids.
Fair enough.
All right, so we had to take a quick break there. We were just talking about the difference between real-world locations and in-game.
In Fallout 4, yes.
In Fallout 4. So let's we won't finish that up. We'll let people, because I think really the takeaway from this whole podcast, and I think is a really great one, is that people should come to Arcane University.
Absolutely, they should.
You have a ton of knowledge to share about level design across Fallout, across Skyrim, across other
I have a ton of knowledge to share across all of modding and all of game design in general.
I've been doing this for like lots of other game design
9 years now.
And you have a host of other people that are alongside you there.
Yes.
So anybody who's been following my Bethesda Mod School series, you should absolutely go join this. I'll make sure I link the Discord below. And then any of you out there who are considering, like, I would love to make, my city in Fallout, or you want to build some old world space in Skyrim, or even if you want to go work on an older game or whatever. Or
if you want to go back to Morrowind, we'll show you how.
Right. Or if you're, you want to get prepared for whatever Elder Scrolls 6 is, because it's clear that Bethesda's not leaving this engine. They have too much knowledge that they've gained and too many systems.
It would make no
sense.
It's 22 years of knowledge on this experience. In some of their cases, I think they still have some of their people from Morrowind days doing the same stuff. Like, it just makes no sense.
Right, and a lot of the stuff is all still fine. They can replace bits of the engine that handle rendering and interaction and stuff, and they've been doing that. So it's clear they're going to stick around with this. So a lot of the core stuff will stick around and maintain, and you'll be able to use that in the future. So if you want to get into any of those things, I highly recommend joining up with these folks and learning from them, because it sounds like you all have a fantastic setup. I'm going to poke my head in and just see your layout. I might not engage because I don't have time.
I'll mark you as a guest.
I still have my 9 to 5 to deal with, so it's a little tougher. But thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm so glad to know about this now. I'm glad there are others out there who are trying to teach the wonders of the creation kit.
Wonders, yes, that's what we're calling it now.
You got to go in positivity. That's it's going to require a lot of patience out of people, so we can't scare them right out of the gate.
No. There should be a level of expectations, of course. Patience is absolutely required. Oh God.
Yeah.
Especially with the Fallout 4 creation kit. If you're trying to get into Fallout 4 modding, it's a lot of patience and a lot of tinkering to understand some of the systems the way they are.
But I would say that anybody who's going through the pains is go find a group to work with. Come go to Arcane University, come on to the Sim Settlements Discord, find a group that can help you through those tough times, because everybody's gone through them, and we've all figured out workarounds. And obviously, if there's this many of us doing it, it's not going to drive you insane. You just need to find.
No, not at all. You just gotta know what not to press.
Yeah. So is there anything you want to point people out to, or anything in particular before we wrap up?
Follow me on my socials.
Okay.
At CreatyChameleon, CREATY, on pretty much everything.
Okay.
My YouTube has a bunch of live streams of literally everything I do, so you can see me drawing maps. You can see me working on level design. Explaining it like Bob Ross occasionally. You can also see me watching Bob Ross while I do level design. It's kind of a common thing, but doing that since Cascadia.
Okay.
There's not much I got to plug. Just be smart, write your ideas down, keep your scope tight, and keep to it. If you don't, you're gonna collapse. You're gonna fall under your own ambition.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. We want to see you guys releasing projects. Get some stuff out to us all.
We want to see them finish, and we want to play them, because new projects, new good projects, are really hard to come by these days.
Yeah, we don't want to give any more money to these damn AAA companies. We want to let's just make content for each other.
Just give me pictures of Spider-Man on Fallout 4. That's all we need.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much.